Hello everyone, Ember here, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at upcoming Zoroark and Gengar deck lists from Lost Origin. Zoroark is of course one of the 6 upcoming V-Stars from the set, and it does look to be super good, so I thought we'd go over some deck lists today. So just a quick overview of Zoroark itself. It's very easy to set up thanks to cards like Gengar and Gibraltar Bog. It has amazing damage output in the mid to late game. It's incredible with burst options thanks to its V-Star power Phantom Star, and it has more than one variant, making it highly versatile and unpredictable in the standard format. So what I mean is by that is, the deck can sort of change and adapt to what's changing in the meta, for example. So if there's more Arceus and opposing Zoroark variants, you could potentially play the Lucario variant, for example, as opposed to the Gengar variant. So just quickly looking at what the card actually does. It has 270 HP, it's obviously a stage 1 V-Star, colorless typing, so you're not actually hitting anything for weakness, which is pretty annoying, but I suppose it is a good way of balancing this card out. It has a weakness to fighting, which is of course a bit of a pain in case Urshifu ever comes back from the dead to try and annoy you. I know Urshifu is being played a bit more lately as opposed to how it has been in the last few months, so you do have to watch out for that. But overall, not the worst typing in the world, and we do have Dunsparce to remove that weakness. Also has a retreat cost of 2, meaning that you do have Air Balloon Synergy, as well as obviously Charon's Care and stuff to just move stuff around like that. So you're still pretty tanky, even if you do have 270 HP, so you're not quite up there with 280, such as Arceus and Giratina, but you're still pretty tanky. The main attack, Baneful Curse, deals 50 damage for each of your Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. Don't worry, we'll get into some maths regarding Gengar in a second. But this is for double turbo, so obviously you don't actually have to use double turbo, but if you do, it will minus your damage by 20, so do bear that in mind. And then it has the ability Phantom Star, which is a V-Star power. So during your turn, you may discard your hand and draw 7. So this is a Professor's Research, but as an ability, which is obviously really, really strong. It's also, in most lists, the only V-Star that you'll ever play in the deck, so 9 times out of 10 you'll obviously be using this ability once per game. It's a really strong ability, and it has great synergy with Gengar, which we'll go over in a second, so Phantom Star is definitely a very good V-Star power to have on Zoroark. So going over very quickly what Gengar actually does, it has 120 HP, which is a very low for stage 2, but to be honest, Gengar's not really here to tank a hit or even attack, really. It's mainly here for the ability Netherworld Gate. It says, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your discard pile, you may put it onto your bench. If you do, put 3 damage counters onto Gengar. So it goes down to 90 HP, which is obviously ridiculously low. But this will obviously act as an extra Pokemon that is damaged for our Zoroark. And then the Screaming Circle attack says put 2 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each of their bench Pokemon. So theoretically, you could sprinkle 100 damage for a single Psychic Energy. It's not the worst. It's not the worst move ever, to be honest, and it does act as quite a nice secondary attacker in the deck if you happen to run Psychic Energy in that build, which some lists definitely do. So definitely keep that in mind. So just quickly going into some Zoroark maths. One Gengar is obviously 50 damage. With a belt, it's 80, but with a double turbo, it's 60. So obviously I won't read out all of these, but some key numbers to note are if you hit 3 Gengar, you are doing 150, which is a 2-hit KO on V-Stars. If you hit a belt, it's 180, which is pretty big. Double Turbo will take it back down to 160, which is super annoying, but still pretty respectable damage. And then, of course, if 5 Pokemon have damage on them, which doesn't have to be necessarily 4 Gengar and a Zoroark, it could be, Bibarel, it could be a Bibarel, 2 Zoroarks, and like 3 Gengar or something. But either way, the 250 is pretty good. It's pretty good damage, I should say. And with a belt, it gets to 280. Now, assuming you've not used double turbo energy at this point, 280 will obviously OHKO other V-Stars, which is sort of what this deck, I guess, wants to do at least once per game. To help with that, of course, we do have the item Damage Pump that says move up to 2 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to your other Pokemon in any way you like. So you can actually take 2 damage counters off a Gengar that has 3 damage on it and just sprinkle them around a little bit. So this deck will obviously play multiple copies of Damage Pump. So just very quickly, what kind of a board state you maybe expect to see with a deck like this. This is obviously not going to happen every single game. I don't expect it to, at least. But you'd have maybe a Zoroark in the active, 3 to 4 Gengar on the bench, maybe 1 less just so you can make room for a Bibarel, for example, and then 1 Zoroark ready to go. And then with this setup, obviously you'd get 200 damage off. You could play a damage pump and then sprinkle the damage to your Zoroarks, and then you'd be smacking, massive amounts of damage. And obviously the potential is there to get relatively easy one-hit KOs potentially. So going into this first list, we have the B-Barrel engine. This is like the classic list I've been talking about. I'm not sure why you need Diancie, to be honest. I think it's in here in case you miss an attack, or actually, no, there is another reason why you play Diancie, actually. I should have mentioned this before, but the Evolving V has a move that does 30 damage for 0 energy, which is pretty crucial, and it switches into one of your bench Pokemon. So if you have to use that in a pinch because you don't have a Double Turbo or you don't have a Zoroark, you could use that attack and then switch into a Diancie, so the opponent can never boss the Zoroark V before you have to evolve it. So I do think Diancie is probably in the list for that reason. I would say this is like, overall, just saying as a general note, this is like the most consistent list I've seen for this deck. I'm not sure why you need one path to the peak, though. I think that's a wee bit excessive. I would cut the one path for maybe a second energy lotto, but this person obviously thinks one path to the peak is going to help you at some point. Other than that, nothing really terribly out of the ordinary. 3 Gengars, pretty standard. You could play 4 if you really want to, but most people do seem to be running the 3 copies. 1 Hawlucha is interesting, so this person obviously believes that it's worth running for the VMAXs. VMAXs are typically on the decline, but some cards like Ice Rider do still see plenty of play in Japan, so it's probably why Hawlucha is in here. 4 damage pump is to be expected, 4 Gape Drop Bog, so not only are you playing Gengar, you're playing the Gape Drop Bog as well. Also playing 2 Canvassing Colleen just to get through Miltanks, I think, and Duraludon, I guess. So I guess that's kind of like what you're trying to do with Hawlucha as well, is if you can OHKO a Duraludon, or at least get a few hits in with Colleen, then you can just like take them out. Probably not saying that right either, but yeah, pretty good list overall though. Moving on to this other list, very, very similar, but does crucially play 2 different cards. It plays the Radiant Gardevoir for starters, giving you an extra 20 HP effectively. It says your Pokemon take 20 less damage from your opponent's active V's attacks. So it does mean that your Pokemon are just that bit tankier. We do also see an inclusion of the Empoleon V from the Battle Style set, I think it is. It's a Rapid Strike card, but crucially, it has an ability that actually shuts off your opponent's basic Pokemon abilities with a rule box, meaning you can actually get around Diancie. You can also get around Lucario, so that deck will be completely shut down unless they boss around Empoleon, and you'll also be able to shut off Regigigas, which is super popular in Japan as well. So yeah, definitely a cool inclusion to see Empoleon here. Do play 2 Melanie as well and 7 Water, so not playing any Double Turbo. This deck is just saying, yeah, we respect Duraludon. We're going to have a good time against that. And truth be told, even if his list maybe isn't as powerful as some of the other lists, it will have a much better time against Duraludon, obviously. It turns out into a winnable matchup, to be honest. And it does turn like Lucario into way more favorable than it was before. So I do like and respect this list and for those reasons. So going on to our third list here, we have a Radiant Heatran variant. Truth be told, I'm not sure if Radiant Heatran is actually worth it. I know its damage output does scale with Magma Basin, so I guess the whole combo here is you can threaten to attack with Radiant Heatran, or you can move the damage off Radiant Heatran with Damage Pump and then move it around a bit. It seems pretty cool. Problem is, I think Radiant Zar just outclasses it in every department, just doing that bit much more damage with less energy, so truth be told, I would probably play Radiant Zard over Radiant Heatran, but it's not like the absolute worst choice ever, especially if you can't afford Radiant Heatran, or Radiant Zard, I should say, or you can't get a hold of a copy of one, basically. And we do play 1 Heavy Ball, of course, to search out Radiant Heatran if we need it. And then the list is, I've not really been talking about the trainers that much, but there's not like massive variation. Obviously, this list is playing a split of the stadiums, Gape Jobog, and Basin. It is also playing actually 1 powerful color synergy, which you don't see very often, but it will just give you a plus 20. So if maybe you're like 20 short hitting some maps, then powerful colors is going to come in clutch and definitely help you out. So for those of you who just kind of despise B-Barrel engines, I know there's some people who voice their opinions saying B-Barrel kind of sucks. Cinccino is obviously here. This list coincidentally plays 2 draw engines, plays Cinccino and Mew, which I think is a bit OTT. But obviously not my list. I don't know like how good this list is, to be honest. It could be really strong, we don't know. But there is some synergy in that Cinccino can actually discard a Gengar from your hand, draw 2 cards, and then obviously Gengar can put itself back from the discard pile onto your bench and damage itself in the process, providing you with, of course, more damage. So, yeah, seems pretty solid. Also, if you're able to bench your Mincinos with a Gapeshot Bog, they will obviously act as damage modifiers as well. But just be careful with benching too many Zoroarks with Gapeshot Bog, because you don't want Zoroark to have a lot less HP than it needs to. Still a interesting list, though, very interesting. 3 Trekking Shoes is also quite interesting. I'm not sure if it's in an effort to try and get more Gengars in the discard power, but you are only playing 2 Gengar, which is a bit sketch. I would personally play 3 Gengar, 1 Mew, but that's just my take on it. So looking at, I believe this is the last list. Yeah, last list is Lucario Zoroark. Lucario is a super interesting partner, naturally because it damages itself, which is of course going to help with our damage output. But for a second reason as well, Lucario is honestly a really, really strong one-price attacker. I know a lot of people dismiss Lucario and say I'll just play Zoroark instead, but Lucario does have a lot of good merits in Standard right now. And of course, one of them being is its type coverage, allowing you to hit weakness on Blissey, on Miltank, which is pretty big, Blissey, Miltank, Arceus, and opposing Zoroark. So for just 2 energy and a choice belt, or 3 energy, you can OHKO an opposing Zoroark, which is pretty big. Also, if they've used their own Gapeshot Bog, or if they've been hit by your Gapeshot Bog, you will OHKO opposing Zoroark for 2 energy. Important to remember that. And most of these lists aren't actually playing a Dunsparce, so this person's playing a Dunsparce probably for the mirror match, I'm assuming, but pretty cool list overall. If you do have a couple of copies of Lucario, I would recommend trying this out versus other Zoroark variants in testing, maybe, or like other Arceus variants. But super interesting list. Overall, been a bit of a quick one today, but thanks for watching. Let me know what you think down below. Which is your favorite Zoroark list, of course, and